I'm back out here again. And today we're gonna tear open this C6 transmission. Right now I'm gonna start on the outside and just take a wire brush, try to get all the, not like take it down to make it show polish or anything, but I just don't want that dirt to get in while I'm building it. So I'm gonna try to knock all that dirt off so that it's as clean as I can be when I go putting it back together. Alright, here we go. Alright, so I got it all wire brushed and took a little screwdriver and go in and dig into the corners until you get it. So I got it all cleaned up now. It's ready to take it apart. Now I have all that trash getting into my rebuild. So we'll paint it black and seal it probably when we get done. But we're ready to start splitting it open now. Well, with an impact I was able to get that transmission mount off. I couldn't get off in the truck. And I was worried that maybe the aluminum would get, and I'd have to key-insert it, but looks like it didn't break or nothing, so I got lucky. And that's the tail shaft that I need. That's the one part that I don't have a spare of. So we got that off, and now the tail shaft can come. There's a governor in there I got to get to. Well, I had to use the big lathe here to turn down an 1.5-inch socket to go inside that yoke. So we're on the last pass right now. We're going to take this socket and hopefully get that yoke off, and then I can go check the governor and the tail shaft. Alright, it took a big pipe wrench against the table, 3/4, that turned down socket I made, have a 3/4-inch drive set, and that bar. But I got it broke free now, so I can get the yoke off. Alright, I'm going to use the impact. So I got an impact, just a 1/2-inch drive impact. Well, what I've done is and somewhere around here there's a chunk of steel. Oh, I had to knock it out of the impact a minute ago. It's over here in my vise. There's a chunk of steel that's been cut 3/4 inches and it slides inside of a 15/16, 12 point or whatever it is. Like that. And then that 3/4 will go in my 3/4-inch drive socket. So I'll be able just to buzz that off right now, and then I can take the tail housing shaft off. And there's a governor in there. This is the only reason why I'm trying to get in there, is there's a piece in there that if it's got dirt in it, everything I do forward is going to be junk. So I need to go in there, and it could be the complete and total, problem with the transmission. It may have picked up some silicone or got some dirt in it, and that governor is not working. So I got to get in there. So I got all the bolts out. Let's take a hammer and tap on this, and the seal break and the tail shaft to come out. I've already broke it free. I've tapped a little bit more than what I'm going to do to show you, but it'll come off. Now there's a spacer in here that bottoms out that yoke for the U-joints. So when you pull this off, so that when you pull that off, there'll be this spacer that comes out. And then the tail shaft will come off. Let me pull it off there. Alright, there's the governor part I was talking about, and this little piece will get stuck. So I got to get that open and clean it. But inside the tail shaft, there's this sprag bearing. This one's okay, so I don't have to take it out, but this is why you never start a burnout out in first gear on automatic transmission. Doesn't matter if it's Ford, Chevrolet, or Dodge. that sprag gear doesn't get lubricated in first and reverse gear. So you always start out in second gear and then go to third. If you do burnouts in first gear, this thing will end up exploding on you because it won't get any oil. So just to let you know, that's why this is the reason why you never start a burnout in first gear. Now you can pull your tail shaft out apparently on a C6, and when you do, you know you got to fight it to go back in all the clutches. So these little piston reading type things, there's 2 holes drilled in this. See that hole and the other hole? One of them is for first gear and one of them is reverse gear on this transmission. So it's very important. That comes from the pump up front. So it's very important that passageway is clean. We're going to blow that out with air. And that may be the reason why. It might have a piece of dirt in there. It might be the reason why it just won't go. But put it back in. You gotta wiggle and turn it. So it catches all the clutches in line. Because there's a bunch of disc in there, remember, you'll see it later. So we'll get this governor cleaned out. And right now what we're doing is we're just, as the parts come apart, I'm stacking them in order as they come off. It'll be a front side too. These things are really pretty simple. The biggest thing is just to be clean. And it is a juice box though. It does just magic in there. So, but I have a feeling the clutches are burnt on this one. So we need to get it. I'm going to continue tearing it down. Tail shafts off. We've got by the getting the yoke off. That's a big deal. And now we're going to flip it over and tear that pan off and get the valve body out and the bands and all that stuff. Alright, so while we're back here, this is your park rod. So you see if I see, that's not park, this is park. It'll go out there and lock that gear up. So see how it works? So watch not to break that, or if you're having problems with park, that'll be your issue. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take the servo piston out. And this has got the D, there's L, and but the L will be for a car. The D is the hardest shifting one. It'll hold the most pressure. So they put these in the 1-ton trucks and the big trucks and that. So you want to firm up your car or whatever, get a D servo and we'll take it apart now and I'll show you. It's like a piston inside there. So I popped the servo open and you see the water that's in there? So a bunch of water come out, which I had my radiator fail on me, and that's probably what killed. See the water coming? It's probably what killed this transmission. I flushed it twice, but you just can't never get it all out when that happens. So we'll get the water out of this thing. It probably burned all the clutches up. See it? See how it's looks like strawberry milkshake? So we'll get her all fixed up. And I got that spare transmission, so I can use a converter and valve body and stuff out of that. So anyway, the servo, you just take the bolts and just tap, 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 and it'll seem like forever. And then the servo will come out. I got all new gaskets, but there's no reason to waste this gasket unless it decides it doesn't want to cooperate. It looks like it's already broke. So there's the servo. This spring, see all the water in there? So there's a spring, and then the piston. It all works inside here. So we'll get it all cleaned up. And you see that, that's a telltale sign that clutch material happened. And that could be in my governor. It's on the back of the tail shaft. It could be the whole reason why this thing quit moving. So we'll get in there and see. We'll get it all cleaned out, and we'll get the pan open and see what the inside of this thing looks like. Probably not going to look much better than all this. And if I can rebuild it with what I got, I'm probably not going to chance it. I probably use the pump and the valve body and a couple other things out of that spare transmission that I got when we open it up. Alright, so that's how I'm taking the servo out. Alright, I got it rolled up and I'm ready to blaze this pan off. And then on a Chrysler, you can there's jack bolts. You can take the bolt out of the pump and move it over to a hole and push the pump out. But on the Sport, to get that pump out, we got to get in here, take the valve body off, take the pan off, take the valve body off, and then tap it out from the inside. So we got to go in here first. Okay, so I got the pan off. This is all clutch disc material. See it? It just smoked clutches, and you can still see the water even after 2 flushes. That was like $100 or $200 of fluid that I put through it. But it's I got to get into the clutch packs and rebuild the clutch packs on it. So this is the valve body. It comes off next, and then we can tap the pump out, and then we get to the clutches that we're trying to get to rebuild. And you can see you see the rod come up. That's the park rod that goes in there and actually locks your transmission up. So what we're going to do now is get that valve body off after we do a little bit of work, cleaning this crap up that come out, and we're going to proceed in. Alright, so I unbolted the valve body off, and this is you see where the lever on your valve body, it drops into that slot for your shifter. See all the detents, and then this over here pushes. That's when you're that lever right there pushes on that, and it goes with your throttle up top. So that's your kick down lever. It comes in here and it pushes on that right there. So that's where your kick down linkage hooks up. It allows you to downshift. So we're going to put a cable back on the kick down and link it to the throttle. Like $25. This is a second gear band. There's the adjuster for the band. We're going to take that adjuster loose next and get that second gear band loose, and then we're going to come in here and tap that pump loose. So we need to take the bolts out of the pump and tap it forward. Alright, here's the adjuster for the second, third, the intermediate gear band. So this comes out the side, and then the band comes loose now off. So there's a bar in there too. That'll come out. So you see that forked bar? That's how the band works. So this comes in from this side. So when your kick down linkage pushes in, or you put it in second gear, it applies that band to the drum and locks it up. And third gear is just running off the clutch packs. So if you have a problem with not having second gear or whatever, you can adjust this. You either get second gear firmer or get it to where it actually starts working again. So I got these parts out now. I've taken all the bolts out of the front of the pump. So I'll go in the inside and I'll tap that pump out now. So on the C6 you gotta put a piece of brass in here, and I use a brass hammer. But if you beat it long enough, it'll come out. Somebody helped me out and they siliconed it, so I had to raise it around the outside. It'll only bolt on one way, but it helps me when I go to put it back together, you know, a mark. But my guess, this pump's probably not going to go back in, so I mean, that probably wasn't really needed. So I'll probably take the pump out of the other one that hasn't seen water at all and put in when I get it tore apart. But the pump's coming out now. Okay, so the pump's out now, and it seals on this outside edge. So when you see that, see this shaft comes right out, but this is actually your driven, and this one is what's actually spinning the fluid in the pump. So this input shaft comes out, and the short side goes in, and they all have this wear where they weren't turned very pretty there in the center. So there's nothing wrong with this input shaft. I guess they did make a couple of these that have different splines, like a bastard shaft on each end. So you gotta, you know, if it's not the bastard shaft, it'll go in either way. But there is a couple C6s with the bastard shaft that it won't go in backwards. And, you know, so anyway, there's the input shaft, and there's a thrust washer on here. So you got to make sure that you see that it's keyed, and you see the thrust side that goes towards the drum. So you got to make sure that you put that on there when you put the pump in, and it drops into that key there. So you see, not in the key, in the key. And these grooves right here is what's transferring your fluid to the different gears. See how there's like a piston ring in between there, so it doesn't go to two different things at once. So this is shoving fluid into that first or the second and third drum here. So alright, I got the pump out now. We'll pull the intermediate shaft out, and then the band will come out right now. So I had to pull the band out of the drum there. These bands like to break that ear, and they make one that you can throw in there. So if you lose second gear and you get in there and this band's busted, you can buy one for like 15 bucks that you can just wrap in there and then put the end on. You don't have to take the whole transmission out of the whatever it's in. So the second gear band will come out now, and intermediate second, third gear drum will come out, and then we can get to look at the clutches. So this is the drum for the intermediate second, third gear, but if you use 2 screwdrivers, you can get this third clip to pop up, and this is what holds those friction discs in. So we're going to pull that out, and then we'll get the friction disc out by just turning the drum over. We'll see what they look like. Okay, so I dropped the drum, so these all fell out, and I got the second and third clutches don't look that bad. So we'll get into the first drum, but we'll go ahead and put new clutches and everything in this drum, and make sure it's all clean so it ain't got no water in it. So we'll keep going back into the transmission until we get it all out. Okay, here's the next trick. This one kind of sucks because you see that washer down there, it springs this all together. So I put a whole bar all the way across this thing, and then a vise or a clamp on my table, and that brings it down. Now I can pull that, do the 2 screwdriver thing and pull that circlip out, and then I can look at the clutch pack in there. So this is this is another reason why you never want to do burnouts, because you see this little bearing here. The first gear drum doesn't really like it. You want to start out in the second gear, and this bearing won't blow up on you, and let alone the tail shaft bearing in the back that doesn't get any oil. But if you have this drum engaged and you're trying to do burnouts in first gear, this is the stuff that breaks. So you always start out in second and then go to third in an automatic transmission. At least that's what the old timers always told me. So I got this clutch pack out, and we're going to pull the drum out next for that set of clutches. And you can see the planetary that it has. So it has, you know, thrust washer and then a 3-pinion planetary there. So, and gotta get it back together. Give me a minute. Alright, so I got the planetary put back in this first gear drum, and the reverse is back in there, so that it's separated on the Ford. They don't have a second band like the Chryslers do. So yeah, reverse and first gear, and we're just putting them all, everything in a line here as it come out. Put it back in. So there's a circlip back here that has to pop out, and then we can get to that last set of clutch packs. Okay, so the easy way to get this last bit out is after you get that circlip out in there, put your hand in it and you turn the case upside down, let the whole thing fall in your hand, and then lay it on the table. And then when you flip the case up, it'll all be together for the last clutch set. So this must be the first gear clutch pack all the way back in this, and the other one must be the reverse, because we finally found the destroyed. See, they're gone. It's the reason why the truck wouldn't drive. It destroyed first gear. So there's supposed to be material. See all the material, all the clutch materials gone. They're all like that. So it was just slipping steel plates to steel plates. So this is what needs fixed in the truck. So we put these clutches, put a new set of clutches in here, and she'll be a runner again. Alrighty. If this is the first gear on this transmission, then this is this actual bearing that all the old timers say explodes. It's this one, and it'll only go in there one way. So apparently, if you're doing burnouts in first gear, this bearing here will explode. So they always say, that's why you always see them at the drag strip, they always start at second gear and then go into third. So I cannot do anything with one hand today, but it drops in there. Alright, I got it all dropped back in there now. And I got that one bearing put back on the spring. I believe they call that the sprag gear. So it goes in there first. So we're going to go over there and line this stuff up. And get the case all cleaned out and blowed out and everything. And then we're going to go look, because like this part here, if that other transmission has this in aluminum instead of steel, or steel instead of aluminum, it would be a better one to put in than this drum. So we're going to open up that one I bought and see what we got for parts. And I really think I could put this one back together with new clutches and then it would work. Those other clutches were fine, but that first, the reverse and second and third, This first gear set is just shot. They're absolutely, see the clutch come off. So steel on steel there. That's all I really need to do to fix this. But if I don't want to take the valve body and the pump apart on this one, plus they've had water in them, if I use the valve body and the pump out of that other transmission, and it may have better set of these planetary gears. We're going to open it up and see what we can take for spare parts to put this back together. Alright, I don't need to tear it down any farther. I don't need to tear all that parking locking system out. I just brake clean and sprayed. I sprayed through the hole that goes to the power valve. I sprayed through the holes that go to the first and reverse clutches. And I sprayed out all these holes that go to that second and third clutch pack set. And where it's tore down as far as I need to rebuild it. So we've got it all blown out, brake cleaned, all the old stuff. And, you know, it's out of there. There's no water in it anymore. So we're going to lay this case over to the side with the other stuff and cover it up. And then we're going to open up the spare one I got, because what I'll probably end up doing is I'll reuse the pump out of that spare. I'll reuse the valve body, and I'll probably use the power valve. It had a D valve in it too. You notice this arm says it's a D also, that pushes on that servo. D servo pushes on the band for second gear. So we'll probably use the D servo out of that spare transmission instead of the one that came in this. We'll probably use the servo, the valve body, and the pump. And then we'll repack all the guts that are in here and put it together and say a prayer. So I'm going to tear the other one apart now and get the parts that I want out of it. Well, before I go disassembling that other transmission, I'm going to take this one apart and see what all, if I need to steal parts for it or not. I may just have to flush that converter out that was with it, this transmission, and just have that other transmission or sell it. But so I'm looking at the pump. I got the pump. You take these bolts out and the input comes out of the pump, and then in here, they say it'll blue one side. There you can see it. It just barely has bluing on that one side. But this pump looks good. So I think I'll just clean it out. Get it all nice and clean. Blow it out. Put it back together. And then I'm going to open the valve body up. Alright, so there's 3 holes that it has to line up when you put this back together. They look like these. So there's 3 holes are lined up, and I'm just going to put a small dab of blue Loctite on each of these bolts and impact them down. And then I think this pump will be fine to reuse. So I got the spare, the one I bought, the extra one, for a big block C6. I got it. It had the wrong tail shaft. And it's a good thing I didn't just put it in, because the second gear band, the adjuster was popped out of it. But the band is better, because so this was the band that I had. You see it's burnt. See how black it is? So the band that was in it looks good. It's not burnt like that. So I'll be able to use, I got the band out of it, I got the pump out of it, I got the converter out of it, I got the valve body out of it. And we'll be able to put it together with the spare parts from the other, and also this rebuild kit I got. So yeah, I got it all tore apart. Now I'm gonna work on cleaning. I'm not going to use a servo out of it. I'm going to use a servo I got. I took it apart and I cleaned it all and put it back together. And we're getting ready to start throwing new seals to it. Well, this is the old valve body. It's got all this dirt and trash in it. But if you look, it has detents. And one out of the other transmission doesn't. So this one, I could actually hold it in manual, but there's no rev limiter on the truck either. But you could pull it down into second gear, where this one, you couldn't hold it in second gear. Once the pressure gets high enough, it'll pass it. So I don't know which one's better. This might be, this is a really good for pulling or digging or whatever. You can pull it down in second. It's probably the reason why first gear got burned up, because it didn't shift out of first gear. Somebody held it in first gear, probably me. So if I put this valve body in, if I downshift and it's up over speed, it won't allow it to go into high gear. But this valve body's highly sought after because of the detent. You can actually hold it up. If you had it in a drag car or something, you could hold this up, 5, 6, 7,000 RPM and force it to shift, and instead of running it in drive. So I may take this apart and see if I clean it up. I may put it back in instead of using this one. This would be the easy one. I could just start putting it together right now. Alright, so I've decided I'm going to try to take this apart, because this is a much better. I push snow with this truck as tall as the hood, only because I could detent first gear. So I mean, this truck has done a lot of work. I've abused the shit out of that old transmission, so I think this is a much better valve body than that other valve body. So if I can take it apart and not lose any of the springs and put it back together and get it cleaned up, this will be a lot better to use in this old truck. If I put 2 tons of wood in the back of it or something. So we're going to give it the old college try, take it apart, and hopefully we can get this old manual detent valve body working. Alright, I've taken some brake clean and I've taken every one of these plates off, all these valves, and made sure they all move and cleaned them out with brake clean. It's kind of hard to do without 2 hands, so I don't really have any video of it, but take these plates off and the actual valves come out of the valve body. So I got this part of the valve body all cleaned up. Now I get to take this part. There's no balls or nothing in this one. On this one there's a spring and a like a hat. Goes in right here. There's a little 1/4-inch check ball, drops in right there, and then there's a ball and a spring that goes in right here. So that's all there is on this one. So that'll be all ready when I go put it back together. Those balls are the same, so you can interchange them. And I guess the earlier models, they use the ball for this instead of a hat. So we're going to open this up and I'll get it cleaned out, and then I'll get the valve body all put back together. Okay, I got all the valve body cleaned up and ready to put back together. That kind of sucked. This gasket was like baked on there. So put the gasket in, metal plate, valve body that's been cleaned, filter, all the bolts, and next video you'll see it put together. Alright, I got the valve body all put back together and cleaned up. So I got everything ready to assemble. I can clean it as I go and rebuild it. So this was the disassemble of the 2 transmissions, and it's all prepped and ready to go back together now. So alright, well, if you like this kind of stuff, check back in. Have a nice day.